Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another edition of the NFL Draft Triple Take, brought to you by UPMC. I'm Mike Prisuta, joined as always by Matt Williamson and Dale Lolley. We are continuing to get you ready for the NFL Draft scheduled for April 27 through 29 in Kansas City. We're at the stage of our pre-draft evaluations where we are taking a second look at the position groups. And today, guys, we start with take two on the edge rushers. And this, Dale, another intriguing group, and another group that includes a lot of guys that maybe aren't just edge rushers.
Yeah, there's guys here. There's big ones, there's small ones, there's everything in between. There's fast ones. I think I looked, there were 11 edge rushers or maybe 12 edge rushers in this draft who ran sub 4.6. Just ridiculous with this group. But number one is one of those guys who was just at 4.6. And he is Will Anderson out of Alabama.
He was all of our number ones the first time.
Yeah, right. Didn't change.
He'll stay that way.
Had he come out last year, he would have been number one.
Yeah.
He's that good. I got Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech at number 2. He's a different style of guy, bigger guy. Could be a 4.3N kind of player. After that, I got Myles Murphy from Clemson, another bigger-bodied edge rusher. Had just a great pro day. Hadn't been able to work out the first at the combine or at Clemson's pro day. Had to have one of his own at 273 pounds. He ran a 4.51, I believe. Just crazy numbers for him. Then you're looking at another bigger type guy, Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa. And then finally, I'm keeping Nolan Smith out of Georgia on my edge rushers, but he could be an off-ball linebacker as well. He was 238 at the combine, kind of teetering on that edge of maybe being a little bit too small to play on the edge in the NFL, but I could have him eat a couple of sandwiches and let him rush the passer. 4.39 in the 40 at the combine.
You're keeping him at edge. I am kicking him inside. So, Nolan, you are off the list.
I can understand that.
I did the same, yeah.
Matt, with some of these Georgia guys the last couple of years, that defense is so multiple.
Right. And stars everywhere.
You don't necessarily know. They may have a guy where they think he best suits them.
Just to get him on the field.
But you kick him up a level, and in the NFL, he might be better suited at another position. Last year's number one, a pretty good example of that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they are very versatile. They just bring in a ton of athletes, which is the way the NFL's going, too. Dale mentioned Murphy and Van Ness. I mean, they're just big, disruptive defensive linemen. I don't know if they're going to be on the edge. Are they going to bounce inside? And Smith, I had Smith with my linebackers as well.
I'm not done yet.
Yep, go for it.
I got Van Ness at 5 with now I had Smith edge initially. I'm kicking him inside now.
I did the same thing.
Keon White's a guy I really like, intangibly, athletically. He's my 4. I put Murphy in when I took Smith out because Murphy just did a delayed workout for the scouts. He missed the combine and he missed the first pro day at Clemson. But boy, did he explode. 4.51 in the 40, 7.22 Williamson in the 3-cone.
Yeah, for that big a guy, too, is pretty ridiculous. And he's a really smooth, fluid, 5-star recruit type of guy. Murphy's growing on me really quick. I like him quite a bit. I did not have White in my top 5, but boy, overall, this class is tremendous. I mean, there's some names here that are usually a top 5 type of guy, and even others, to be honest with you. I had Will McDonald at 3, and I kind of lumped these two together in that they're both 6'5 plus, 270 plus. They can move all over the line. McDonald's not for everyone. I mean, he's in the high 230-pound range, 240, narrow waist. I just love the way he plays.
Limits
super
that flexibility
productive.
that you were talking about.
Yeah, he's an edge guy. I mean, he's not going to be all over the line of scrimmage. More of a 3-4 outside linebacker type. But he plays with his hair on fire. He's super productive. He came to Iowa State as a 190-pound guy, and they couldn't keep him off the field because he just kept disrupting things time and time again. Real quick on these two. Wilson is just a rare physical specimen. I mean, his arms are like a condor's. I mean, I think he's more athlete than football player, although he's not a bad football player. And I'm not giving Will Anderson a hard time at all. He's a tremendous player, but I don't quite put him at the Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett level in terms of disruptive coming into the league. He's a really good player. I just don't think he's elite.
Yeah, I think he's another guy that surrounded by talent.
Right.
You may see more from him at the next level, as silly as that contend to sound.
That's a tough thing. You know, people wonder why, for example, a guy like Nolan Smith, we only had 3 or 4 sacks last year. There's so many guys that you have to share sacks with on that Georgia defense.
It's a race to the quarterback.
It's exactly. It's a race to the quarterback. You might not get there first all the time.
Not just the spot they play you in, but there's rotations at these schools because they have depth and they want to play everybody.
Right.
It's good sound football for them. It's not necessarily preparing the guy as well as you possibly could to do one thing in the NFL. But Matt, you talked about flexibility a moment ago.
Yeah.
It's kind of always been that way with wide receiver and offensive line, right? You like an offensive lineman that can play multiple positions.
Especially if you're not a star left tackle. If
Receiver
you're gonna be a
that can
six
play
guy,
inside and outside. I think this is becoming such a position. Defensive tackle maybe even is becoming such a position. And with the Nolan Smith, you might see linebacker.
100%. I mean, even like an Obabare guy from Northwestern, what position does he play? Is he really that much different than Keon White? He can stand up. He can play 3 technique. He can play a 4-eye. He can put them all over the place. So I think that's tremendous, and I think that these defensive coordinators are just accumulating game wreckers, and that's what Van Ness is to me. I mean, he's very raw, but he's kind of a game wrecker right now. You can line him up over whoever you like, you know, week to week. Murphy's the same way, and you figure it out and just bring in a lot of talented, disruptive athletes.
Some of the guys that maybe the best of the rest, McDonald would probably be on most everybody's list there if he wasn't in the top 5. This guy from Kansas State, Felix Anadike Uzoma, I think that's how you pronounce that.
Very nice.
We'll work on some of these names. He played against Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. In fact, all the Kansas State guys and all the Alabama guys played. It wasn't a college football playoff game, but they all wanted to play. It mattered. It was the Sugar Bowl. It was against Bama or it was against Kansas State, which has been really good the last couple of years. We've heard some people, one that used to work in this building, say that you get a little extra credit for that. Not that you downgrade the guys who decide to take the postseason off to get ready for the draft, but there's something to that competitiveness.
It's the thing about pride and love of the game.
And the loyalty and all that. I mean, I think it reflects well on all those guys that they did that. Andre Carter of Army is maybe
Really
not as big as he needs to be physically, but guess what? He'll have a little more time to lift weights now that he doesn't have that 16-hour schedule.
Well, that's the thing.
At the U.S. Military
people were
Academy
killing
West
him.
Point demands.
Yeah, people were killing him because he didn't run well at the combine and didn't do this. I'm like, he's not training for this stuff. He's training to go, run a 70-yard pack on his back and doing those kind of things. He's not doing football training. He's doing Army training. A little different.
With Sergeant Holcomb.
Exactly.
Another guy that caught my eye early in this process, he's not going to be a high pick, I don't think, but Isaiah Land of Florida A&M is just a really productive edge. And they tried him a little bit inside in some of the postseason games. I don't know if that went great, but he, at his level at least, was as good an edge rusher, either standing up or in a 3-point stance. Caleb Murphy of Ferris State, that's in Big Rapids, Michigan, by the way. 25 and a half sacks in 2022. Now, that's an NCAA single-season record for any division. And Matt, I've heard scouts, which you used to be one.
Yeah.
I've heard scouts tell me over the years, hey, sacks translate. If you can get the quarterback on the ground,
Oh, yeah.
you can get him on the ground.
You can get him on the ground. I mean, Javon Hargrave was a great example. Played at a small school, but just utterly dominated. Some of these guys, I was at Duquesne when Lee Bodden was there, and he was by far the best player on the field times 1,000. No one even threw his way. So I do think there's a lot to these really small schools just being by far the best player on the field, whether you're an edge rusher, whatever position you play. And particularly as these edge guys, you better get a lot of sacks if you're at Ferris State, right? Right.
And one other guy I wanted to mention, Jose Ramirez of Eastern Michigan.
I like him quite a bit.
Max Crosby's from Eastern Michigan. I mean,
He's doing all right.
I don't know what that means every year. Eastern Michigan's going to have a Max Crosby or a Charlie Batch. I mean, let's face it, the greats come along only so often. But something that caught my attention. Dale, anybody on your
I got one
secondary
for you.
radar list?
Yeah, how about Valami Fahoko out of San Jose State? 22 sacks the last 3 years. You know who his coach was in college?
I do not.
Joe Sayamalu, who is Isaac Sayamalu's father.
Wow, nice.
So the little tie in there with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Byron Young out of Tennessee, a 4.40 at 250 pounds at the NFL Scouting Combine. That's just outstanding.
Matt, you got a few under-the-radar names to throw
Another
around?
great name, Yaya Diaby, is I'm a big fan of too. I mean, I think most years he'd probably be in this neighborhood, but there's so many good edge guys. He's big, he's extremely physical, a little bit raw, but he's a tremendous athlete. I think he'd be a great project for someone, maybe third round, something like that. Great.
So, to kind of summarize the position, we think it's stars available early,
Yeah.
and guys that can contribute quickly thereafter.
And plenty of them. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really deep position, rivaling the cornerback position, I think, for maybe the top spot in this draft.
That's going to do it for this edition of the Triple Take. I want to thank everybody for finding us, however and wherever you found us, and remind one and all that you can get more great content such as this on those Steelers social media platforms. So keep finding us, and we'll keep doing our best to get you ready for the NFL Draft at the end of April in KC. Until next time, for Matt Williamson and Dale Lolley, I'm Mike Prisuta. This has been the NFL Draft Triple Take, brought to you by UPMC.